Good evening, and welcome to the Putnam Valley Board of Education Business Meeting of October 22nd, 2020. Please stand and join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first order of business, I'd like to resolve to approve the minutes for the work session business meeting of October 8th, 2020.
Second that.
Questions and comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
And I abstain.
As you ladies were not at the meeting, okay? And now that moves us right into presentations. Dr. Luft, you want to set us up?
I would love to. So as last board meeting, we got to hear from our elementary school and our athletics department. This evening, we get to hear from both our middle school and our high school. So I would like to welcome Mr. Travis McCarty and Dr. Letitia Payne. Thank you. The 6 fans at home.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Travis McCarty. I have the pleasure of being the principal of Putnam Valley Middle School, and I'm here with
Dr. Letitia Payne, the assistant principal.
Thank you. So we just wanted to take a few minutes to go over our successful opening for the school year. We're following our Board of Health and CDC guidelines. All of our staff and students are wearing their masks and socially distancing themselves, with exceptions of mask breaks and eating or drinking. Thank goodness for our new dining hall and our learning commons. This has been a tremendous benefit spacing-wise during our lunch and recess periods. We have hand sanitizing stations around the building and water filling stations. We'd like to thank our PVPTA for providing water bottles for our entire student population. It's been tremendous, and our students have put their names on them, so we haven't had any wind up in the lost and found. They've been keeping track of those, so kudos to them for sure. All of our desks are sanitized after every class, as this has become part of the classroom routine. Teachers typically end a couple minutes early, and they spray those desks and pass out paper towels, which has helped with the cleanliness and helped to reduce the possibility of spreading germs. We do have signage in our hallways and our stairwells. The students, for the most part, do follow these. When they're not transitioning, I actually see kids following those patterns. They typically don't have to do so when the hallways are empty, but they are rule followers. So very excited to see that happening. The stairwell by our main office is for up only, and the stairwell down by our guidance suite is for down. We do have strong student engagement from all of our students. It's really exciting to see those at home and those in the classroom simultaneously, and teachers checking in on them. And all of a sudden you'll be doing a classroom observation and you'll hear a voice. And I was speaking to one of my teachers the other day, and she's teaching our students social etiquette by asking the students to say, "Excuse me," and then they say their name, and then they ask their question. So there are great benefits to this type of system that exists, and I was very pleased to see it. She said to me, "What did you think of their manners?" We've been going over that in class. And of course, our breakfast and lunches are free through the end of December, so please take advantage. We've actually moved our drop-off point in the morning. Our students enter through our new corridor by the dining hall, and they go right in, and they can go right to the cafeteria area and pick up their free breakfast, sit down and eat, and then transition for the rest of their school day. Here's a couple images. This is the front of our building. I say almost there. Our new canopy and windows will be a wonderful final touch, bringing it all together. And in fact, when I came on campus this evening, to my delight, I saw them starting to put up the new canopy, which is very exciting. I'm told that once they start it, it should be almost complete within a week or so. And I know those windows are coming in soon as well. So the final touches on the front of the building, it's absolutely beautiful to see every morning. It really came out nice. And kudos to Dave Spittle and the crew and Dr. Luft and everyone that's been involved with those final touches. I know it's not easy, and you might not notice this, but actually the trim on the building was repainted. It's a little bit of a softer brown, and I think it matches the trim on the windows and everything. It brings it all together. So you wouldn't know it unless you saw it happening, but it is really a nice final touch. In our main office here, we have a hand sanitizing station, and we have those throughout our building. You'll also notice there's a table of materials. We are asking those parents that have 100% remote students to please come in. Our building's open from 6:30 a.m. in the morning until 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. We have been making phone calls. We do want to partner with families just so that those kids are prepared with everything that they need to be successful at home. There's an inside image of our dining hall. And you'll see that students are socially distanced, eating their lunch in this case. And now on to Dr. Payne.
Thank you. So there's some positive things going on in our middle school. One of the things that we have on our district webpage is our community meeting, which we conducted last month. And so that will be there all year round for anyone to observe. Our back to school night was much of a success. We had it remotely, so teachers did presentations for both 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it was well attended. Many parents came out to that event. Parent meetings have been conducted remotely, which has really truly helped us with attendance. Construction project, as Dr. McCarty, no, I want to give you a doctor. Mr. McCarty shared with you, we have our construction project underway. And when you look at the spaces, you wonder what would it be if we had all our learners here with us. We had a very smooth opening. We had a staggered start where our 5th graders came in and our 6th graders came in, and then finally our 7th and 8th graders came in through that week. And when we look at it, it really was a smooth transition for the students coming in, especially our younger learners who have not been in the building, able to see and get an opportunity to meet with their teachers in their classrooms before the opening days of full school. Teachers have become more efficient at using technology. We just had our professional development this afternoon where teachers were learning about Screencastify. They were involved in the new features of Google Meets, where they can do group activities with students and able to, this mask, it's hard to breathe. So in those Google Meets, they're able to create groups in there and do engaging activities, whereas with the social distancing in the classroom can sometimes make it harder and more challenging, but Google has advanced. So as we say, it takes a village. So we've had a lot of partnering with our families to make sure that our remote learners and our hybrid learners are getting the best of their learning. Some challenges that we experience, with our remote students. We've partnered with many families to help to make sure that they're coming online and being fully engaged in the learning. They are working with our teachers to make sure that students are getting everything that they need and being present on the cameras and participating in the classroom. Our hybrid model, our teachers have been doing a wonderful job with that, with all the technology that it takes to teach on the screen, as well as teach the students in the classroom. I know when I was a classroom teacher, I never had to do anything like that before, and to see our teachers do such an amazing job in such a short period of time has really shown that students are really engaged in the classroom, and teachers are really taking advantage of all the technology that there is to offer. We're also looking at our power standards and really trying to look at which standards are most essential to learners. We have Laura Sherwood, our tech specialist, who's really helping our teachers to use technologies in new ways. We're using Go Formative, Flipgrid, and Kami. Kami is a great way for students to be able to access any type of documents that the teachers are presenting for them. And we're also providing professional development after school throughout the school year. So we have some photographs of some of our fifth graders in action. I want to take note of some of our remote learners on screen when the teachers are able to see them and teach them. Then we have our sixth grade classes, seventh grade, and then our eighth grade classes.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. You know, one thing that I wanted you to notice there with fifth grade is, you know, you look at that laptop in the front of the classroom and you could see all those students online. I'll go back to it just so that you get an idea of what that classroom atmosphere looks like. You look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see those faces on the screen. And that's what teachers kind of simultaneously go back and forth to. So those kids are there. Some teachers actually project that window up on their screen while they're teaching the students in the classroom at the same time. So while you see the kids in the upper right-hand corner engaged in learning, you also have those kids up near the front of the classroom on the screen, and you'll see the document camera has become a vital tool, especially with art classes and textile classes and those classes that you really want to model what's happening. We use it in the classroom. Now, those kids, when screen sharing, you can show those kids at home as well. I just wanted to point that out for you. It's a vital piece in every classroom every day. All right, so now we're going to talk about the numbers a little bit. You know, last year we were hovering right around 500 students. We do see a slight increase of 15 students this year. And, you know, you can read for yourself the change in the grade levels. We have an increase of 10 in fifth grade, a decrease of 5 in sixth grade, a decrease of 7 in seventh grade, and then our eighth grade is our large cohort. You'll see plus 17, and they're at 136. So there's a little bit of change there. However, that fifth grade is coming in strong at 130. So 130, 121, 128, and 136. And something we did add to this slide is you'll notice our virtual or fully remote students. So in fifth grade, we have 15, sixth grade, 21, seventh grade, 31, and eighth grade, we have 24 for a total of 91. So why do I mention this to you? You know, we're in discussions because in January, we've asked students and families to commit to that remote model. And our wonder is, what could that look like for the second half of the year? If all of a sudden all those families decide to send their kids in, we're going to have to rethink the model that we're in, which I think is a really nice model with our A through K, L through Z students, and then Mondays are 100% remote. So we really have to think of spacing wise. And I think we've been very flexible with families and working with them and seeing, you know, who needs what? Can we accept certain students for certain needs? And we've really partnered with families well with regard to, you know, coming in 2 days a week. Some come in 4 days a week. We're meeting the needs of all learners.
Travis, is like the 130 in fifth grade include the 15 that are
Yes.
virtual students?
Yep.
And how are those students divided between the classes? Like, are they pretty much evenly divided, or?
It's pretty close. It's pretty closely divided amongst the cohorts. You know, we have essentially 5 sections with our collab model. So in 5th and 6th grade, you see those 5 sections, and you see about the same amount of kids that are remote than the other kids, give or take a few. But I will tell you, it's not easy. Like, I think of those students that are at home for whatever reason, whether it be health reasons, whether it be convenience and such, being at home 5 days a week, on a computer for 6 hours a day, I am thinking about what those students might be like when they return. You know, the socialization aspect of it. And I do understand the need to be at home. But it's one of those things that I worry about because I care about them and I know our teachers do. And they want to reach to them. And they've really gone above and beyond in that our kids leave at 1:45. However, our teachers are still there from 1:45 to 2:40. And they provide extra support to those remote learners. And, you know, we talk about it weekly. How is so-and-so doing? How is this student doing? And those discussions are, we need to provide extra support because they might not be in person to get that direct feedback. So to say those remote learners are getting the same type as those in person, it's hard to say. Right. But I can tell you, most kids, when they're in person, they're more apt to open up. They're more apt to ask questions, you know? Those kids that are at home sometimes maybe a little bit more quiet because you're learning a new way to interact with those teachers. So when a teacher has never met a child in person, it's definitely a different feel. So yeah, those numbers on the right do include the 15 that are remote, include the 130 total.
All right, okay.
All right.
As Ms. McCarty said, that we do have 50% of our students that are in person. We are on an A through F rotating block schedule. On Mondays is our fully remote students, where all of our students are learning online at home. And then on Tuesday, Thursdays, we have our A through K students, and Wednesdays through Fridays, we have our L through Z. Students start their day at 7:45 and finish their day at 1:45. And like Mr. McCarty said, they get that extra support after from 1:45 to 2:40 with their classroom teachers as the needs arise. On Mondays, the time frame is different than during the regular Tuesday through Friday. On Mondays, they have a 42-minute remote experience, and then Tuesdays through Fridays, they have 35 minutes and 52 minutes periods, which is really helpful to our teachers to be able to have an expanded amount of time with the students, to be able to help and support them even further and expand and enrich their learning. But we are definitely hopeful that in January, when we start to reconsider and look at where we are health-wise in the country, as well as within our community, where we can be, you know, in terms of having all of our learners back in school.
Thank you. So looking forward, as we always do, we try to project what 2021 will bring, if not 2021, 2022. So just speaking science-wise, I know back in the spring we had spoken about the transition from Earth Science to Science 8 for All in 8th grade. Been off to a great start. In fact, we work very closely with our science teachers. They've been collaborating and taking advantage of professional development opportunities and continuing to integrate the next generation science standards. I say, unfortunately, with this pandemic, assessments have been pushed back. So the Science 8 Next Generation Science assessment has been pushed back another year. So it was projected to be this spring, I believe. It's been pushed back another year. So we have more time to continue to align those standards. We also have our 5th grade, I should mention, using Science 21. And I know that rollout has been slowed as well because of the pandemic. So it was all transitioned to the next generation science standards. We have a teacher who's training now virtually in that, and they've pushed it back a year as well. So with regard to math, we currently have 2 sections of Math 7A, which would be accelerated, and 2 sections of Algebra 1. And we hope to continue to grow our numbers in this area. We want our students to have a great foundation in algebra before they come to the high school, so that we're not taking more opportunities in having those pre-algebra courses for 9th graders. We want to limit pre-algebra when those kids come to the high school. We want to move them along to Algebra 1 so that they can be further ahead math-wise. We currently only have one section of Mandarin Chinese in 8th grade. Interest was low in 7th grade this year. I believe we had 5 or 6 students sign up for Mandarin Chinese, so it wasn't enough to run the program. So all Spanish currently for 7th grade. It will be a discussion to see what our offering may be to the current 6th graders as they move on to 7th grade to see if that's still going to be considered an offering or not. Our Learning Commons, AKA library. It's nice to say library in the middle school, you know that? It's been a long time. Will be populated with books, and our new library aide is currently taking inventory of the building. She's worked very, very closely with teachers. You know, teachers become, they take ownership of everything that they have in their classroom, and they've collected books over the years. They've brought in their own items. And when you have someone come into the classroom who's starting to go through your materials, teachers start to wonder, what's going on? Are you going to take my books from my room? So we had Ms. Hartnett do a nice presentation for the building, and basically says the teachers can keep their own belongings. However, we want to centralize what we have, and we want kids to loan out books from our library, and we want every student to have a book in their binder so that they can stop and read when they need to. And you know, she's been doing a great job. Our Learning Commons is taking off a little bit slower than we had hoped because we're using that space for lunch. So we have kids socially distanced 6 feet apart. We do need to get books for our shelves and move books, but by the end of this year, we will have a great foundation for that space. And I was saying hopes to someday have a library media specialist possibly in that space, maybe shared between the elementary school and the middle school. Something I'm hopeful for in the future at some point. So the questions we still have, you know, what will 2021 bring for our students and staff in the areas of scheduling, in the programs that we offer, in the staffing that we have, and in the facilities that we populate. I will tell you that this block schedule has been phenomenal. I'm a little upset that we don't have 40-minute periods and 60-minute periods. We have 35 and 52. But it's still more than we've ever offered in the past to our 7th and 8th graders. And you really see that, and the teachers really say, this is wonderful. I mean, they have 4 sections. They really can focus on these students. They have more time with them, 30 additional hours. And I really feel the culture of the building, even though we're in a pandemic, has been positive in that aspect. They really appreciate the schedule, and we're hoping to discuss a schedule for next year, because when you build a schedule, you've always got to revisit it and make adjustments to it. And that's something we will be discussing over the winter and the spring. And I'll tell you, the schedule that we're currently running under took 2 years to develop. So I thought I'd share one of the bulletin boards from a 5th grade class in our building. And this just says it all. Hooray, you're here. And it's so nice to see our students walk through the hallways every day, abiding by our social distancing rules. And you can see them smiling under those masks. And I'll tell you, I continue to welcome our students every morning with Dr. Payne. And the one thing we say to every single student that comes into that building is good morning. And do you know they actually say it back under those masks? And I have a lot of teaching assistants that are out there with me, and they have said they're going to start to tally how many kids actually say good morning back. And it's amazing. It's at least 80%. And, you know, I know that it's not easy for them to get off those buses 2 days a week, but they bring a smile to our face, and we hope that we bring a smile to their face. And our teachers and our staff have gone above and beyond, and we can't thank them enough for overcoming the challenges that truly do exist and learning this new model. And we're in and out of classrooms every day, and we see the hard work, and we've really grown a lot from it, and we have much more to learn. But it's been a very positive start to the school year, as much as it can be. And we hope to continue to support our families at home, our staff in the building, and our students in the building. So are there any questions for us?
I actually have two quick questions. And I know I've seen this on the schedule, but the 35 minutes and the 52 minutes, are the 52 minutes always the core subjects and the 35 are the specials, or does it rotate based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day or A, B, C, D, E, F day? Or?
So the way that it rotates is our 35 and 52s flip-flop. So those are actually our core subjects.
Okay.
So math, science, social studies, and ELA flip-flop. And what's really nice about that is you might have a 52-minute period for math in the morning, and then that will flip-flop with science in the afternoon, which will be a 35. And then the next day, you'll have the science first period in the morning for 52, and you'll have the math in the afternoon for 35. So it flip-flops. So those learners, we always say those kids who may be late to school, those kids who just don't learn well in the morning, when it flip-flops, they get the best of both worlds. So it's not always impacting that time of the day with regard to their learning.
And then the specials are 43 minutes, 42 minutes, something in that neighborhood, like the encores?
It depends,
Okay.
but yes.
And then my other question is more, I guess, logistic. I know we put kind of a time limit on committing to remote versus virtual learning in terms of being able to control our spaces when we opened, but have we had an increase in students that have gone to all virtual? And I
No.
know it's hard to hear.
We've had the opposite.
Okay. Okay, great.
I have to say,
That's great.
hands down to our teachers, we did not know what to expect. And we've actually had more families request to come back in than we've had go out. It's really a nice feeling. It is. It just shows that we're doing it right, and the families recognize it, and they appreciate it.
So I think the trend we've seen is the younger the student, the more requests we've had
Sure,
to have
to
them
come
come
back,
back.
right.
So more in the elementary than the middle, more in the middle than the high. But overall, there's certainly been an influx of students back in. In terms of projecting towards January, assuming the current hybrid model maintains, it's really not an issue in the middle of high school. So for those 15 students to return in 5th grade, that would be an additional 3 students per class, and we would have the capacity to fit them, assuming we keep the AB schedule. The real fear for that is the elementary school, where in some classrooms, there's literally not a single open space for another desk, and they have zero ability to take students back in. So, I would love to be at a place where we could bring all of our middle school students back in, but unless there's changes to the regulations, that's not going to be possible at this time. But in terms of taking the all remote learners back in and maintaining the hybrid system, I have a great deal of confidence that we would be able to accommodate those groups of students.
Thank you very much.
When are we going to query if they want to come back in January?
So the date in my head, and this is not going public, but
Till now?
it's hard, right? Because there's two competing forces. We have the unknown of what happens between now and January, which is a very real, like nobody here knows what's going to happen. Nobody at home knows what's going to happen. So to do it too soon, to do it premature, is you're asking people to commit to the absolute unknown. So that's why we're not doing it now. The other side of the coin is this could mean, depending upon how many students come back in, especially at the elementary school, we're talking about profound changes, like everything from rescheduling a building, reassigning teachers, relocating classrooms, splitting classes, or possibly the possibility of having to be forced to move to a hybrid schedule to split our elementary school into an A group, B group, which certainly would not be a popular decision. That's all going to depend upon those numbers and would take a significant amount of time. So the date in my head is right after the Thanksgiving break. I think that's as close as we'll get to January, while still providing us enough time to make the changes we would need to make, depending upon what those numbers are. So that's obviously subject to change, but right now that's sort of the date that is in my head.
Thank you.
Travis or Letitia, we talked, well, the board has talked, and I know you have, about both social emotional and academic losses from last year? Like what are your teachers seeing in terms of scooping kids up and keeping them, moving forward?
Sure, that's a great question. So Dr. Payne worked very closely with our teachers to provide our iReady assessment, which was given late September, early October, which gave us data to move forward with. And we're utilizing those assessments to drive instruction. So in our AIS math, AIS reading courses, along with our teachers, it's hard to get a true pulse as to what was lost. What we're doing now is we're taking the materials that we would typically offer early in the school year, and we're using those benchmarks to drive our instruction. So we actually have our quarterly data meetings coming up here in the next 2 weeks, where we're going to sit down with our teachers and really look at their classroom assessments and go over the iReady benchmarks and have teacher discussions to see whether or not fluid-wise moving kids in and out of AIS. And we have our RTI meetings and our discussions with where students are. Now, one of the things that has come up is the outreach to those that are 100% remote learners. Those are the ones that, when we do teleconferences and such, it's not always easy to get a full pulse as to where they are socially and emotionally yet. But our clinical team is working very hard to do so, and we actually have Red Ribbon Week coming up next week. Nice. So we have a lot of fun activities in our dining hall set for all of our students. But
the teachers didn't, when they did the iReady assessments, didn't like, oh my God, they haven't progressed since last year. I mean, there was still growth through the year, and kids are doing all right.
Yeah, there wasn't anything jaw-dropping like all of our students are 2 or 3 grade levels below where they should be.
That's good.
We also have to weigh in the fact that we didn't give a third iReady assessment last year
Right.
because we were remote. So we were very lucky to be able to give it this year to those that were 100% remote.
Oh, you did?
We
You
did.
give it to them.
We
That's
did.
great.
So all of our students have that data, and it's not easy. The teachers have said the pace of their curriculum is moving slower than normal, as we would expect during a model like this.
Right.
Because it's not like having kids in front of you 100% of the time where you can really drive things home and move quickly, per se.
Right.
We do expect our curriculum to move a little bit slower than it typically would. And that's why we talked about the power standards and really focusing on the essentials.
It's really about depth over breadth and taking a look at where the kids are right now currently and really working on utilizing that data to actually promote our instruction.
Well, teachers are exit outcome driven. I mean, that's been a model that teachers have used. We know where we want them to be at the end, and then we work backwards. But having them in school, learning, happy, growing, just being exposed to one another and ideas and all that that has to shift your focus a little bit away from, the academic exit standards to the depth of how are our children learning and seeing themselves as learners.
Yeah. I think, the biggest question coming in is, for all of our students, is how are you? How are you coming off the bus? How are you doing? And we have the same questions for our teachers. What I have shared with administration is our teachers are intrinsically driven to do well and to want the best for our children. And what's been challenging for us is to offer them the opportunity to slow down and just understand that this is the situation we're in and it's going to be okay. We're going to still have standards for our students. We're still going to push them, but don't go to that extent where if we were 100%, you're going to burn out. And those are the conversations we have had, and they are the most powerful conversations I think we can continue to have with our students and with all of our staff members. And I tell you, when the kids are in the lunchroom, when the kids are out to recess, when the kids are in the hallways, the only thing that's different is they've got their masks on. They're not at their lockers, and I never thought that I'd say this. It has worked so much more efficiently with our kids bringing their backpacks from class to class, but then reality hits, and I'm like, well, if they're back 100%, it's really not that easy to do. So the fact that half of them are in the building at one time, it really has been working efficiently, productively, and the kids, if you were to question our kids, they would say that they've had a great educational experience and a great year so far. They really do. You can see their smiles under their masks, like I said. The difference is they have got backpacks on, and they're moving in one direction through our hallways. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Any other questions? Thank you all for your support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next presentation will be our high school report. So welcome up Dr. Cherry and Mr. Mello.
Travel down the driveway or up the driveway?
You're asking me questions I don't know the answer to.
She said,
Dan, can I
you
use
switch
that other
mics?"
mic?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Entreri, the high school principal, also with Mr. Mello, the high school assistant principal, and we're going to be giving a little overview of how the high school has developed this year. And I put this particular picture up here because it shows Simone Gabrielle, her sister Cece, and her family, and they so wonderfully donated that balloon arch to the high school to start school, to really try to, bring back that positivity and that energetic spirit that we had before the pandemic. It was a long summer. Mr. Mello and I met with each department at least 3 times, talking about needs and how we could prepare for this year, and we're so impressed with how the teachers have embraced this new normal, and I really think that the whole district deserves a really applause to you, Dr. Luft, the entire administrative team, because as we know, there are many schools around the region that have not opened at all, and I think overall the district has done an exceptional job bringing back our students in the best way possible. And also in the fact that, it's Board Appreciation Week, and we do want to thank the board for all they've contributed to the high school throughout the past 5 years, because we not just opened school in a hybrid model, but we have opened as an IB World School. We are in the 2nd year of developing the IB program, and it has been a phenomenal and huge undertaking, and really everything is coming together in a really kind of beautiful way to really help our students achieve success and grow as students and as learners. And when we think about, at one time the district used to be in the high school, we would not be able to open today in a hybrid model without those additional rooms that we have downstairs. We had a tremendous amount of time we had to take to look at each class to make sure it didn't go over 12 students. And there are several classes that are right at 12. We had to move around a number of different courses and classes and open up those double rooms so that the bigger classes could go into those. And so we really appreciate that we do have that space, because we've used every ounce of it to be ready for the hybrid model this year. And again, we've spent a lot on the IB program, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight, how we are not just a school with IB courses, but we are a school that is an IB World School, and that's something we're very, very proud of. Also, we want to point out that in the, dark times of the pandemic in the spring, the high school was recognized for the first time ever as a New York State recognition school, which meant we had improved attendance. Our subgroups did very well in different achievement areas and overall strong academic achievement. There's still room for growth, but we were very, very pleased to get this recognition, and I'm not exactly sure how measurements are going to continue in the future without last year's regents, and who knows about this year, but we're still closely monitoring our attendance and our academic achievements, and hope for the future that we continue to be recognized. And that's okay. You've seen this house before. It's something I put together to try to show how does everything fit together. And just like our district has made expansion and is building a fitness center and a wellness center, and we've done expansion to the middle school, we've also made expansion to our building at the high school. As an IB World School, you could see, the IB program is something that covers all aspects of what we do at the high school with its philosophy of developing inquirers and caring students who are well-balanced and who understand different perspectives. And this is all built upon, being internationally minded and the social emotional learning that's going on. Most importantly, the IB approaches to teaching and IB approaches to learning is something that has greatly, greatly increased at the high school. When I first came 6 years ago, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about instruction because we were busy rebuilding systems and organizing things. And now it's so wonderful to hear the conversations with teachers about really focusing on what's important and looking at things in depth, as Dr. Payne said also at the middle school, really redesigning curriculum. You think every teacher who's teaching an IB course is redesigning their curriculum, not just for the pandemic and for the hybrid learning, which takes a tremendous amount of time, but in the midst of doing that, they're teaching new curriculum. That's unbelievable. Some teachers who maybe haven't taught a different course in 10, 15, or 20 years are now teaching completely new courses, completely new content on top of preparing for this hybrid model. And they're doing it without complaint, and they're doing it, with enthusiasm about the curriculum. And that's really wonderful to see. And what does it mean to look at these approaches to learning and approaches to teaching? It's really emphasizing thinking skills, communication skills, research skills, self-management skills, and really designing curriculum that's focused on inquiry. And we're going to talk more about what that means tonight. Looking at the big concepts, not the minutia that sometimes courses used to focus on. Looking at teamwork, collaboration. Mr. Mahoney, who teaches math, he's reading a wonderful book about really how do you teach math well? How do you get kids to like it? And it's all about teamwork and collaboration. And that's quite hard to do during a pandemic when kids are 6 feet apart. So it's amazing to see teachers who were so stressed and worried, and it's a big concern, how do we deal with those remote learners every day, to figure out these breakout rooms and find ways to create partnerships and collaborations between students so that they can work together. And of course, differentiating the curriculum. So I put this quote up here because it's really something that all the IB teachers are talking about. IB is about thinking and learning differently. For years and years, it was a lot of material that was just kids wanted to regurgitate it back to the teacher. Memorization, or I'm giving you the information, you tell it back to me. And IB is not that way. It's about inquiry. It's about questioning. It's about asking questions and seeking new things. And I think the kids at some points are very frustrated by it, because especially if you're a high achieving student and you want to be successful, an easy way to do that is give me the information, I will regurgitate it back to you because I've studied and I can easily get that A. But when you have to really put those critical thinking skills into play and come up with new questions and original questions, that is a challenge for students. And so teachers are really focusing on how do we build these skills early on in earlier grades so that when they get to the high school, they're prepared to think differently and not just be passive receivers of information. So how has the IB program, how has being an IB World School helped us to evolve? And one of the things, I love this picture because it's pre-pandemic, and it was last year when we had our first IB information night. And I mean, look at the smiles, the genuine passion for what we're doing. And these are the people who are really making it happen. The extended essay supervisors, Mrs. Thornton and Mrs. Demain. Mrs. Thornton is training 15 extended essay supervisors. And those are teachers who are not necessarily teaching IB courses, but are just learning how to read the essays and give students feedback and mentor them like a dissertation supervisor. Mrs. Demain doing extensive research with students, and I'll show you some of those topics later on. We have their CAS supervisors, Mr. Elsasser and Mrs. Billy, really just embracing what they're doing and helping kids work on their community service projects. And I can't say enough about Mr. DiGregorio and Mr. Lathrop. They have taken on the challenge of being IB coordinators. And what that means is they're not just supervising our diploma candidates, they are overseeing the entire program, hundreds of students. And to hear their passion for the belief system of the IB is just inspiring and keeps everybody going. And they are researching curriculum for teachers. They're looking up training for teachers. They're constantly figuring out questions and issues. And in the midst of the pandemic in the spring last year, they were, furiously trying to communicate with Bethesda, Maryland, or other places in the IB to solve problems so that our students would get their needs met in the IB program. And with that, of course, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mello, who I can't imagine dealing with this pandemic situation and this quarantine without him. He's a tremendous asset, and I'm going to let him continue for a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Antreri. One thing I just want to point out, Putnam Valley is an IB World School. That is just like an amazing thing to say. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the EF Academy in Thornwood. It's a private school. It's an IB World School. It costs $30,000 plus to go there. Our kids are getting the exact same education that those students are there at that private school. So saying that you're an IB World School is something that we should all be really, really proud of and want to celebrate. And we're in the infancy of this, right? We are just starting to get going with where this program is going to take us. I'll give you a little thing that happened last weekend. Mr. DiGregorio, this is the weekend. He is contacted by a family from Abu Dhabi. Okay, and they go to a school there. They had an older child that graduated. It was an IB World School. And they looked at Putnam Valley and are going to be moving to our district next summer because we have the IB program. Now, they could have chosen some of the other schools around. Somers has an IB program, Dobbs, Harrison, right? They chose Putnam Valley because they recognize that we are excited about the program and that we are all in with the IB program. So when we talk about starting to see the benefits of being an IB World School, we're reaching Abu Dhabi. That to me is amazing. All right, we just want to throw a couple numbers out there. Guy, I think you'll appreciate this. So last year, that's year one of our IB program, the 2019-2020, this is ELA. So this would be what IB calls language and literature, year one. So those would be juniors. That's the entire grade, 143 students. 84 were enrolled in an SL, that's the standard level, and 59 were enrolled in an HL, higher level class. So we roll that over to this year, and what we see is this is year two, those students are now seniors. Of those 84 standard level, 18 went on to try and complete that course and receive that certificate. 61, right, that means that we had a couple that were SLs jumped to the higher level class. And that gives us 79 students total in a collegiate level course, right? And if we go back to May 2020 that I have up there, we had 23 seniors, right, that were in literature and composition, AP literature and composition. We now have 79. and we're only in year 2 of this program. So to me, that's like an amazing jump in the rigor that students are willing to undertake because of the importance of this program and the understanding of what that's going to help them do as they move forward. Our first cohort that will be graduating in June of 2021, we have 16 diploma candidates. And I'm really proud of that number, right? This year, the current junior class, we have 8 diploma candidates. And I know what the question is, why did we drop so much, right? Why did we lose half the students in this? And it really boils down to 2 things. One thing that, Mr. McCarty was talking about, changes happening at the middle school, right? Because there are more students that are challenging themselves in honors level algebra classes in the middle school. They're going to be set up to take IB math courses when they get to the high school. Currently, though, our junior class, there aren't enough of them that have the higher level math or Spanish to be able to go on to the IB program. So we noticed that we knew something like this was going to happen. There was going to be a little drop. The reason why we have 16 diploma candidates the first year was because we went with like a hybrid kind of math, IB math class last year. We did Algebra 2, Trig, and Calculus. Ms. Thompson, who's an amazing math teacher, in order to allow these students the opportunity to attempt the IB diploma program, was able to do that. We are now making the corrections so that doesn't happen. I also want to point out that this year we have 10 10th graders that are taking 2 math courses so that next year they'll be able to attempt the IB diploma. It's pretty amazing to think that students are starting to understand and recognize what they need to do to set themselves up to be in the best program that our school has to offer, and probably one of the best programs that you could talk about around.
I just want to add in, and also we were, of course, quarantined for most of the spring. And so that is the time when we would be doing presentations to students in classes about the IB program. We'd be going to the middle school and talking about things. We'd be talking to parents. And we really missed that whole opportunity. And we also, the counselors were phenomenal about doing the high school schedule last year at home. But because they're at home and we were all separated, it didn't really enable us the opportunity to review who was going in the program, who needed what, could we reach out to those kids? It was just time that, we can't recapture because it was just hard being separated.
Yeah, just to give you the understanding, again, Mr. McCarty explained like how more students are going to that. I think it was like, we have 9th graders, 33 9th graders that were previously in the algebra honors course. This year, it's like 45 8th graders in that algebra honors class. That will set them up on a track where they'll have the math background in order to tackle the difficult IB math program. This is one thing that Dr. Interior was really passionate about when it came to the IB program. She says this all the time, IB for all. Right, IB for all. We are not looking at this as some sort of elite program that only our best and brightest can tackle. This is a program, and I'm going to keep saying that. IB is a program, right? It's not standalone courses, it's a program, right? And there's a lot of interconnectedness between all the IB courses. A lot of similarities, a lot of same skills that they need to build on in all those courses. But it's IB for all, and we talk every junior is enrolled in an IB course. I can't remember who was telling me about Janine Lewis, who's a special ed teacher. In her collaborative class, she was talking with Adele Foster, the English teacher that she collabs with. And, Adele was going over this lesson that she wanted to do. And Janine, spent the whole weekend working out, okay, how do I modify all this so that, the students with special needs are going to be able to, handle all. And she spent the whole weekend, and she was amazed that, the fluidity of the lesson, they were all able to tackle it without her modifications. So it's just amazing to think, our students can do this, right? Put the carrot out in front of them, they can do it, right? And they are. It's IB for all in 11th grade language and literature, which means that they don't think that they're in something different. They're just in what they should be in, and the rigor has increased. This year, we have a bunch of new courses. And I need you to understand, like, year 2 of a course can be vastly different than year 1 of a course, okay? So these teachers that are teaching these new courses, it's new material that they are presenting to classes. So IB Environmental Systems and Societies, Visual Arts, Music, year 2, World Topics, which is the second year of the history program, Math, year 2, Language and Literature, Spanish, French, that's French year 2 and French ab initio, and then film year 2.
And I'm going to praise the teachers and emphasize it. As we know, teachers are in a very stressful period during this pandemic, really trying to develop all their curriculum anew. Now imagine they're not just the same curriculum that they've had for the past 10 or 15 years, they're teaching brand new courses, brand new curriculum that's not just new topics, but new in the way they teach it and new in the way students learn it. And so that's a lot for everybody to absorb, and I really can't, express enough what a wonderful job I think they're doing designing the new curriculum and working under these conditions. And really, the IB program has enabled us to backward map and better prepare students and really think about our whole cohesive program in really 6th through 12th grade. Because we've moved English 10H, we've had that now become, instead of just an honors class, that's AP English Language. We've done in the social studies, AP World History is now AP European History in 10th grade. And then we've moved Global Studies H, and it's not just an honors class anymore that's doing the same curriculum as all 9th graders. It's now AP World History. So we've moved that really rigorous curriculum down to 9th grade for students to better prepare them with the skills they need to do the IB program. And if you really look at it, almost 200 students in our school are doing some sort of advanced social studies class, and that is amazing. And really, and we've talked about this before, the IB program is very good. It helps, of course, those who are very, want to achieve and want to succeed, and it gives them many opportunities, but more importantly, it helps students who haven't had those opportunities in the past to now have the chance for rigor, the chance to prepare themselves better so they can be successful in college. And we think that's very, very important. Just to give you a little idea also, we talk a lot, and there's a lot written now in current events about race, there's a lot written about equity, and we've been doing this all along. And when you look at our text in English, these are some from the 9th and 10th grade, some from 11th and 12th grade, but these are books which deal with race, which deal with stories from people from different lands, which deal with issues, the Iranian Revolution being one. It's different voices, it's voices from minorities that haven't always been heard, and they're very difficult topics. There's, issues in there that they have to deal with race relations, in some stories, there's issues about rape. In some issues, it's about immigration. And these are tough topics that our teachers are really embracing and really working through with our students and really doing an excellent job. And not just the stories they're reading, but the non-literary texts that have now been introduced into the curriculum to really examine a photograph, speeches, advertising campaigns, and to look at them with a critical eye so that they can be better critical thinkers and consumers of information, because as we know, we are inundated today with all different aspects of media. And we're putting up some quotes here because not as many people are familiar with IB as they are with the AP, but as I've said in the past, on the Common App, there is a place for a student to check mark if they are a diploma candidate so that they can see admissions counselors that students are taking the most rigorous courses available. And this is just a quote: "My eyes light up when I see International Baccalaureate Diploma Program on a transcript. Students who apply to Michigan State University with IB credentials are assumed to be mature, curious, and creative, and they have proven to be successful in a rigorous program that is both broad and deep in its content and intellectual challenge." So yes, part of it is about getting into college, but the other thing that the IB program does that I don't think any other program does, it's persistence. It prepares students to finish college in 4 years and to be successful and not need those extra years or those extra credits.
So we gave you all a folder. In the folder, I think on the right side, you're going to see examples of internal assessments. You don't have to read that all now. We'll call that homework for the next time we get together. But you'll see like how extensive these are. Mrs. Rufo, I think when you first came on the board, one of the things that you talked about was like rigor in writing, right? That you were questioning, are our students prepared to go to college and the writing that is required in college? If you look at these internal assessments, that's exactly what they're going to have to do in college. In every IB course, whether it's a standard level or a higher level, students have to do an IA, right? We refer acronyms, IA, internal assessment. So the IA, the one thing that's really nice about the IA, it's a topic that the students get to choose themselves, right? Within the course. So you can see we put a couple courses up there, and next to it in red, you'll see there are the examples of the different IAs, questions that they would then go and answer. And these questions, that's the other thing that happens with the IA and IB courses. It's really about teaching students how to question, right? You have to come up with the right question because they want you to ask a question you don't know the answer to, right? It's easy to come up with a question, maybe it isn't easy, I don't know. The French Revolution was bad, created a major turning point in world history. That's kind of simplistic, all right? Asking the deeper question, there was a world topic one up there. To what extent did the code breaking in U.S. intelligence determine the outcomes of the Battle of Midway? Right? And that's a student who came up with that question that they don't know the answer to, right? And through their research, they're going to come up with an answer, right? To me, that's like true research, right? Going on right there. Guy, if you look in the packet, there's a math one that I thought was fascinating. Obviously, the person was into horses, and they had a question about the arc of a horse's jump, and how do you come up with a formula for that? So there's a way that they use the math, right? The math IA. It's pretty amazing stuff. Did I mention that we are an IB world school? Did I mention that already? Just check. Did we lose our? Oh, this is that. Okay, yeah, this is the IA schedule. So also in your packet, you're going to see that this is for any student enrolled in a second year IB course. And it's the schedule that our IB coordinators, Mr. DiGregorio, Mr. Lathrop, working with each of the teachers in collaboration to come up with this IA schedule that would work for everybody. I think the EE, which is the extended essay, I think that's up there as well as CAS, which is creativity, activity, and service. So there's a lot that goes into this, and every IB class, and we have students taking multiple IB courses. It's not just the diploma candidates that are taking multiple. There are many students taking multiple IB courses. All right, so I like graphics. I thought this was really good too. This is last spring, right? This is May 2020. We had 230 AP exams taken, and of that, 130 of those exams scored 3 or higher. 3 is considered to be a good grade on an AP class in an AP course. In IB, our first year, we had 65 assessments taken. They were 34 assessments scored 4 or higher. AP is scored on a scale of 1 to 5. IB is on a 1 to 7 scale. And 18 assessments scored 5 or higher, right? And you can see that's our first year of offering IB courses. All the ones you see up there are 1-year courses. So those are 1-year courses, largely seniors enrolled in those courses. but like this year we have a junior in a IB chemistry class, and we have several juniors in IB psychology.
I also just want to, again, go back to these happened when students were in quarantine. So all this organization of kids taking AP exams and the new IB assessments that were then altered so that they could, accommodate students during the pandemic was all organized by Mr. Mello, Mr. DiGregorio, and Mr. Lathrop to ensure our students had all the necessary information. And of course, really proud of our students who then were at home by themselves without necessarily the support needed that they would if they were in school to really take these exams and these assessments.
Yeah, and last year, the IB just used the internal assessment. So again, think about that in order to score their course. That means that it was a topic chosen by that student within that course that they could investigate and then write a research paper on. And now, this is what's amazing, right? If you go back to the last slide, I think it's 298 students, right? We have 295 students taking higher level courses. Look at this year. This is amazing. We have 190 students signed up for AP and 298 students enrolled in an IB course that's going to end up in an assessment this year. So my math serves me correct. That's like 488. Compared to 295 last year. So we talk about what is the IB program doing for the school. I think we can see that right here, right? We have more students challenging themselves in more classes now than we ever have.
And a big part of it for the diploma candidates, in an area that we want to expand so that all students can have access to this, is the core, the EE, the TOK, and the CAS. And it's another thing that makes the IB program and an IB World School unique. I really invite people to participate in Dr. Macera's TOK class, Theory of Knowledge, and to hear the level of discussion that's happening between students that he's facilitating, but says very little that's led by students is quite impressive. And these students have to do research papers in all their IB subjects, and they do an extended essay, and they do a TOK paper, and they do a CAS project. So it's really a phenomenal amount of things that they have to organize, keep track of, and it's very, very, very rigorous. And I just put some samples of some of the EE or the research papers that are being done. And again, these are being supervised by 15 different teachers so far in the high school that are not necessarily IB teachers of courses right now. And we have math, somebody's doing proofs of contradiction. By contradiction, we have film, directorial techniques which convey a shifting sense of reality. And again, this goes back to thanking the board for their support for the TV studio, because we were able to get a lot of new different types of technology and different things so that the film class could happen. And the students are really embracing this class and really enjoying it and learning a lot about how you look at media, how you analyze different types of media. And psychology, genetics, young childhood and deviant behavior, design technology, golf club design, and innovation. So again, you could see students are taking things that they're passionate about, the golf club design and innovation, and turning it into a research paper, which gives them additional motivation. They see how these classes and this research can help them to apply to the real world. And we have the IB curriculum is the most challenging and comprehensive curriculum available, and IB participation is recommended, taken into account, and considered during the application process. And what we have up here is just a long list that we're not going to read through, but these are just some of the colleges that our students have applied to this fall. And if you look on there, there are, many of the Ivies are on there, Harvard's on there, Clemson, Boston University, Indiana University, Fordham. I mean, just really an impressive list. And again, they feel more confident in where they're able to apply because they're doing this program. And also one thing, and it's not up here, but in your packet on the left, you're going to see a list of every different college, if you look at it, And it's going to have a mark by it, and it's going to say whether this college takes IB credit, what the score needs to be, whether it takes credit for the full diploma program. And I can't say enough about Adele Foster, who made this document and actually got it copyrighted. And if you look at all the resources and citations in the back, she had to write to each and every college to, of course, cite them. It's an extreme amount of detailed work that she made for our students so that they could have a resource to look and see when they're applying, what does it take in the IB program to get credit there. And that is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous service to our students, because I have not seen anything like this in any school around the nation for IB. So I can't thank her enough for what she did for our students. And then just to focus on what did we also do this summer besides preparing for quarantine, we did a lot of our social emotional summer planning group met, and we talked about the importance, as Mr. McCarty already talked about, how do we prepare students to come back? Because they've been away from us for so long. We were worried about the trauma they might have faced being away from school. We prepared a little student survey that about almost 500 students answered. And I thought it was quite interesting to note, about 12% of students noted, they self-reported, that they had been affected by COVID loss of a family member or somebody very close to them. That's a lot of kids, right, in our community who have been at least affected by some sort of severe loss that we have to remember. And we spent a lot of time talking with teachers about really getting students back into routines and getting the support they need. And for the most part, our teachers reported the kids just wanted to get back to work. They were like, okay, can we do work now? They really wanted normalcy and routines and really having something else to focus on besides the quarantine and the pandemic. We also, what I have, I call it a Safe Spaces group, which is a group that focused on acceptance, tolerance, equity, developing empathy in students, because of course with the racial crisis we have going on this summer, and there are a lot of students who do feel disenfranchised. We don't want that. We want everybody to feel included, but we have a way to go on that. In a recent faculty meeting, we did a presentation on microaggressions, where teachers reported that they did come away with some greater awareness about things that we say that might be offensive to students. So we're working on these things, and everybody agrees we have to have more conversation about it and more dialogue and more discussion. And then also we're trying to make a little bit of a celebration within a dark year, and it's the 20th anniversary of Putnam Valley High School. And as I said in the beginning, you know, the board has been very supportive of the high school over the past 5 years, and we're taking the opportunity to celebrate that this is the 20th year in existence. So we had Ms. Dodonna, who's a wonderful asset, make t-shirts for us. The student council is making a time capsule, and they're going to decide what pieces of artifacts go into the time capsule. And so we thank everybody who's contributed to that so far. And we're going to try to work on the Hall of Fame this spring. So we really want to take the time to acknowledge that a lot of the people who started this building are still around, still here, and really you have a group of people who passionately care about the kids in this community and care about this school and want it to be the best that it can be. And that's something that everyone should be proud of. And then just looking at the challenges ahead, how do we expand the IB program to continue the IB for all philosophy of equity and inclusiveness? How do we expand TOK so all students can try that course? How do we expand the community service opportunities for students? And going back to, you know, when Mr. Mello said, oh, you know, Ms. Intrieri is very passionate about every junior taking IB. I really think we have to think about that. That means every special ed student. That means every minority student. Everybody has the opportunity to take a rigorous class, and we think that is phenomenal, and we want to increase that across the board. How do we train teachers in the area of race, gender, et cetera, so that all students feel that they are safe in our school and they feel welcome in our school? And then how can we explore new ways to connect with families, and what will the return to 100% look like? We talk about what will January look like, which will be enough of a challenge. But I often think about, what does September of 2021 look like when possibly we're all coming back again? How do we get those 100 remote students who have been away from school for 15, 16, 17, 18 months to now come back to school every day and have good attendance? That is something that I put a lot of thinking into, because I don't know how that's going to happen. And really, you have high achieving students now. They like being in and being out of the classroom because it gives them a little bit of a break and they don't feel the pressure. And so it's been really mentally healthy, to our surprise, for some of these students. So how do we take some of the good things that actually have been a result of what's happened and use them for the future, I think is something we need to think about. You know, education, we waited 100 years or more for education to look different. I don't like the fact that that we're in a hybrid model or that it's a pandemic, but it's certainly caused a huge disruption to what normally was the past in education. So how do we transform that and take the good things and make education look differently in 2021, 2022? Because why would we go back to the exact same thing that we tried to get away from anyway before the pandemic forced us to get away from it? So just the things that we're thinking about. And, you know, again, I thank you for your support, and I really thank the high school staff for their tremendous support. You rarely see a group of faculty who is so willing and so embraces change in such a positive way to do what's right for kids, and I'm proud to be their principal. Any questions?
I actually just have a quick, I know it's about the opening, but an IB specific question. Can you tell me the difference between, to use the acronyms, EE, which I think is an extended essay, and IA, which is an internal assessment? Is one the driving question the whole time? Is one the end product?
So if you're a diploma candidate, you, in addition to your program of courses, you also have to take, I call it the core, and when I think about the core, I think about us strengthening our core to make the whole body strong, and that's really what the core in IB does. So diploma candidates have to achieve an extended essay where it's like a mini dissertation of a topic of their choice with a supervisor in that content area who helps them through the process. They have to take TOK, or Theory of Knowledge, which is with Dr. Massera, which is a course that meets where they learn how to develop their questions. And then they also have to do that creativity, action, and service, where they learn something new and, you know, develop that and reflect. And that's a big part of the IB program. How does this experience change them? And really, when you think about it, developing questions is a hard task. And not just accepting it, as Mr. Odell gave that quote, that receiver of information. How do you question that information? And so Dr. Massera actually is going to be working in our afternoons. We have the new hour and a half every month. He's going to be going to each department and working with teachers on how do we develop questions and how do we teach students to develop questions. And the internal assessment, that is something that happens in every class. No matter whether you're a diploma candidate, whatever the class may be, you have to do either a historical investigation. In music, you have to write your own composition. So you have to do various tasks. I believe in the foreign languages, it's a complete spoken performance that you have to analyze and speak in the language. In English, you get a poem that you have to choose and analyze it in a spoken presentation. So it's very authentic, and every class does that.
Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. The real strength of the IB program, you looked at, I think it was slide 15, where you had the courses that they were taking. That's not the strength of the program. The strength of the IB program is that our children are now being challenged, and they're learning how to think. They're learning about knowledge. They're learning how to be creative. And it applies to everything. Not what they're interested in, but every subject. It's giving them this new tool. And that's why it's a program not just for a subset. It's actually a methodology for everybody. You think stronger. And they just become unbelievable. They become creative. They challenge. They can ask questions. They're not afraid. And even though they might not be taking some of those IB courses, they're now thinking stronger, and they're becoming better students, and thus, using the Putnam Valley words, they get to maximize their educational experiences.
Well said.
Well, I'm lucky I have IB students in my class.
So IB courses are in 11th and 12th grade, but we are taking the IB learner profile and the different aspects of the IB program, and all teachers are, that's why we had so many teachers trained, because they are backward mapping and using those skills in 9th and 10th grade, and we're also working with the middle school to do, we're going to do a presentation there, but we're going to be working with the middle school as well, so that students have the skills needed to reach the IB program in 11th grade and be prepared.
Yeah, along those same lines, although the coursework itself begins in 11th and 12th grade, I think as a district, we're very committed to taking that learner profile and the skills that students would need to be successful IB students and pushing them down into the other buildings and lower grades, and really for teachers to understand what the expectations will be of a successful IB student, to make sure we start teaching those skills at an early.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, when we made this decision to push AP World History to 9th grade, and understand, I don't know how many students are at the cognitive development maturity, point to be able to be real successful in an AP World History class in 9th grade, but the skills are there, right? We're teaching the skills. But in order to move that there, we had to have conversations with the middle school social studies teachers, right? And they were very, very inquisitive. Okay, all right, so what does this mean to us? What do we need to do to help these students go into 9th grade, right, and attempt to be successful in there? So it was also last year sharing of ideas during superintendent's conference days with the 8th grade, 7th grade social studies teachers, so that they understood what those students are going to have to do as they move forward.
I just wanted to point out a couple quick things. One, we had talked a little bit about the slide regarding ELA, and I just wanted to sort of re-emphasize the data that was on this slide. So for year 2, so seniors that are continuing, we went from 59 in the HL and 61 the following year. That represents 55% of our graduating class taking a college level course their senior year. Now everyone's aware, although they need accredited English, they certainly do not need to take a college level English. But the students were engaged enough in the program that 42% of our students went forward with the HL course. Maybe more impressive to me is the 18 students that continued in the second year of the SL course. Those are students that may typically go into a true elective, an English elective, their senior year, and decided to, rather than take maybe the easy way out, that they would continue to challenge themselves, that they enjoyed what they learned and how they learned during their junior year in the SL course, and decided to continue for year 2 in the SL. And I've had the opportunity to observe one of those classes, and you would never know that was not a credit-bearing course, listening to the content was being taught and how the students were being asked to engage in higher order thinking. So I think that's really impressive, and I did want to just circle back to it. So 55% of our seniors continued with an IB course in English, and 42% of our entire senior class are taking a credit-bearing, or could be with a credit-bearing, HL course. Are there any other questions? I did want to take an opportunity just to acknowledge the dedicated, passionate, and caring colleagues that presented here tonight. It's really been an amazing feat, the way that they've led their buildings through this most challenging time. I think as a district, we have a great deal to be very proud of, and I hope that each of them is very proud of the work that they've done in their building to support their students and their teachers, and overall this entire community. So I wanted to express my gratitude. Thank you.
Okey-dokey. All right. Now we got board stuff, right? That was about the kids and the curriculum and the education and the program. Now it's board business, I would imagine.
Sorry, the next presentation was for the resolutions for NISBA.
Right, so
Okay.
Maureen put a worksheet that West Putt did with the resolutions that are coming before at the NISBA conference. And I need to know how you feel that we should vote. So let me just, I don't know if you want me to go through each one. So the first one is a sunsetting resolution that we advocate for the overhaul of the current inadequate test system. NISBA thinks we should support it. West Putt thinks we should support it. Yes? Number two, the legislation that makes it easier for districts to recover attorney fees in legal cases. Just in a kind of an interesting fact, 40% of all claims related to special education are from New York.
In the country?
Oh, we're high on the list, but
We wonder why New York education costs so much.
right. NISBA and West Putt support it. Is there any reason that we would, okay. Legislation that would shift the burden of proof in special ed. It made sense to me.
What do you think about that, Natalie? Any thoughts? Okay.
What, Natalie? Okay, number four, NISBA seeks legislative or policy changes that would mandate local industrial development agencies to include affected school districts in any payment in lieu of taxes agreement. Jill, is that okay? Want me to read it again? NISBA seeks legislative and or policy changes that would mandate local industrial development agencies to include affected school districts in the development of any payment in lieu of taxes agreement. I guess now the schools are not included when they have those meetings.
Right.
And they felt that schools should be included.
Right.
We don't currently have any pilots.
Right.
So oftentimes schools are the most directly impacted by new development, but pilots are issued oftentimes without involving the school in the issuance of that pilot. So we're incentivizing development without speaking to the schools about what that development may mean for overcrowding of their schools.
Right, so when Amazon takes over a big plot of land to create a warehouse and they don't have to pay any taxes, we would be at the table.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Number five, NISBA supports legislation at the state and or federal level that would allow and enhance the sharing of services among school districts. Yes? Right? West Putt added that they prefer this with an amendment. Number six, NISBA supports proposals to expand opportunities and capacity for online learning. NISBA felt that it should be only opportunities and capacity that enhance learning opportunities for students, not just more technology for, I guess, the sake of, I don't know. They just wanted that amendment added. But they would prefer it, but even without it, they would still vote for it, so. Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Support proposals to incorporate pre-K funding into the school aid formulas. It doesn't really affect us, but yes, I would imagine if it did, we would support that. NISBA opposes proposals to raise the number of charter schools. So we support their opposition
Yes.
to that.
Yes.
It gets more complicated when we get to the ones that they don't support.
right.
Right.
NISBA should oppose proposals to expand mayoral control to school districts beyond New York City.
Or propose, yeah.
We support
I just passed
the
on that.
opposition.
I just passed on that.
Oh, okay. NYSBA supports proposals to regulate and restrict the use of tobacco products among youth. Seeks legislative support to allow for more than one board member to simultaneously attend a New York State Office of State Controller Audit Exit Conference.
Sure.
I guess right now, if you have an audit exit conference with the controller, only one board member
Concur, yes.
can attend, and they want to support more than one board member.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Supports legislation that makes it clear that public school districts are not responsible for assessing the substantial equivalency delivered in non-public schools.
Saying that NICEAD should be doing that, right?
Right, somebody
Right.
else but us,
Yeah.
yes.
It shouldn't be us.
We shouldn't evaluate John F. Kennedy.
Right. Or, we don't have other schools in our district, but Lakeland, you know, I mean, our neighboring districts do. NYSBA supports legislation to authorize bi-directional communication between New York school districts and the New York State Immunization Information System to allow for the efficient query and transportation of student immunization data. And let me see, that's 13. So in the cover that she gave you, the spotlight, no decision was reached by West Putt on this resolution as additional information requested was not readily available. The ease of ensuring that school nurses can download information from the New York State website instead of having to re-enter immunization data was readily supported. The concern over the bi-directional nature of the resolution was over the bi-directional. Unless the school nurse is the medical professional providing the immunizations, there was a concern over allowing or requiring school nurses to upload student data provided by the family.
But the school nurse never does the immunization. They're never providing the medical for immunization.
But the legislation is to authorize the nurses to do that, but they're not
Authorize the nurses to release the information.
to input the information
into the database.
that then goes to the state. But our nurses are not,
So if they receive the vaccine chart from the provider,
Right.
to enter that information into the database, is what it's saying.
However, wouldn't it be in the database before you even got it anyway? That's the only way we would get it, right?
No.
no, a child could bring a proof of immunization to the nurse and hand it to the nurse.
Right, but, okay, but I mean, would.
And then that doesn't
Doesn't
go
that-
into it right now.
I think the problem is not all physicians sort of subscribe and enter the immunization data
Into the
into the
state
state database. So the nurses can certainly extract data out, but can't necessarily see every student. What this is asking for is if they have sort of approved immunization information for students, to allow them to enter it into the system, which would then create one comprehensive source of information as opposed to maintaining multiple sources, some electronic and some paper, and then they have to sort of check back and forth.
And the concern was the nurses don't want that responsibility to upload, or?
Right, the concern was the bi-directional, which means unless the school nurse is the medical professional providing the immunization, there was a concern over allowing or requiring school nurses to upload student data provided by the family. What if they,
Because it could be not factual,
Wrong.
right?
Right.
And it's not just allowing them to upload, but downloading things and actually giving them basic, you can think about it in general terms, it's giving them access to the database in both directions. And
And I-
that's
I-
what
Right
the
now, they just
complaint
have
was.
access to query it.
And I have no issue with the first part of that equation, just the second part that is the issue, especially when we could be on the receiving end of fraudulent data, so that the student could attend school because we have a document that says they received their inoculations, but they've not, but now it's ended up getting a life of its own in a
Right.
state database. I see that as a good reason.
so do you think I should stop by and talk to Kathy Hill? I mean, like, get actually a nurse's input before?
I would just wait to see if they modify this based on Westchester Putnam School Board's
Okay.
decision.
Okay,
Because Westchester Putnam School Board is saying, when you read the Ithaca proposal, there's so many gray areas that
Right.
you're not sure what they're talking about. We just talk about immunization, we talk about all medical records,
Right.
so it's not really clear. So that's why Westchester Putnam said no decision.
Right.
Because I know, as someone who works as a social worker in a school district, who we do have I have a population, and we frequently have homeless students, or students have undergone trauma or moves, and parents don't have access to their immunization records, or they no longer can, that doesn't happen so much in our community, but there are a number of times that we've had students have to retake all their immunizations because all of their data is not available. That it's been too long to find the doctor's, whatever the reasons are, it was the clinic's closed, it's come up a lot. So I would love some kind of legislation having it inputted, but I do absolutely understand the ownership of somebody taking a piece of paper a parent's giving you and then entering that in. I do get that. I wish there was a way it could be there, but I get that. So I would agree, get that extra information. Are they making
Okay.
any
And I'll let you
revisions
know
or
how I
changes?
voted. 14 is to support legislation that would enable the commissioner to declare alternate election arrangements in cases where the disaster substantially interrupts a scheduled school board vote. Yeah?
Yeah, well,
Why not? Why not?
do you think that happened?
2 years ago, Maureen, right? 15, NISBA seeks to support legislation that would provide for training and certification for professional parent advocates to attend committee on special ed meetings and hearings. This is only training and certification if you use professional parent advocate. This is not, in other words, certification and training would not need to be for
Our parent members?
just a
No,
parent
nothing.
advocate.
Okay.
No.
Just if that's your job as a
Right.
professional parent advocate. Okay, 16, NISBA supports legislation that promotes the reduction in costs associated with an impartial hearing, independent evaluation requests, and attorney fees associated with due process. Or anything that reduces our costs.
Right, how can you say no to that?
NISBA supports increased state and federal funding to provide educational equity by addressing the digital divide. Yes. NISBA oppose mid-year state aid cuts to allow for educational continuity and fiscal stability.
What do you think, Jill?
We support that
I was going
opposition.
to say, if any of you are against that, we need to have a side conversation.
And the last of the support is to produce and widely recommend the adoption of a board policy or language to be added to the existing policy related to child abuse, stating that the adopting district will encourage and facilitate all school personnel, including those who are mandated reporters and those who are not, to participate once every 3 years in a course or workshop that presents information related to signs of child abuse and the responsibilities of reporting it.
What does
I
that
thought-
compare to where we are now?
I thought we did that every year for teachers, right?
I guess that means it's not necessarily a law.
I think they're recommending that there's a board policy saying it will be done.
That's right. That's what they're basing.
We're doing it now. Do we necessarily have a board policy that says it? Yeah, I think it does too, but let's double check that. That's how I interpret that, not, they're not saying we're not already doing it.
Right,
They're saying
But-
that there should be a policy making sure we do.
right. And why, I don't understand why they're going to move it to 3 years, every 3 years. I mean, to me, that, I don't know. I mean, in some ways, it might make it easier for the district when you think of all the mandated training we have to do every year, but
Well, it's not unlike a handful of years ago where they had a bunch of resolutions about multi-year audits, like doing an audit every 5 years instead of every year or two.
Right.
But I mean, the question is, things can get out of hand in that case. But I think it would be at minimum 3, doesn't mean we can't be less than 3.
Right, but that 3-hour course is pretty much once in your lifetime.
Yes, you just take it once.
That's for your certification, right, in whatever your position is, right?
So if they're referring to this 3-hour course every 3 years, would we support it or not support it?
Right, this is a course or workshop that presents information related to signs of child abuse. That's indicates a workshop that's kind of a refresher or
Yeah.
a reminder. Or,
Yeah, this is not,
Right.
it doesn't sound like the 3-hour course. It
Right.
sounds like an update, a booster shot for.
So I'm really okay. I mean, it's one of the things that you tend to, of all the mandated trainings, you tend to not forget it. It's really almost a commonsensical
Right.
sort of thing. So it's not technical that, oh, I have to hear it again every year. It really, I think,
But it is a reminder, I know, having done it.
Right.
It is a reminder again of what my responsibilities are,
right.
so.
Okay.
Okay.
If you look at the justification, that's basically what it's saying. They
Right.
talk about much of the district's personnel mandated reporters and have been trained in recognizing, but it was done many years ago or even decades ago. That's on page 20 of the other document.
Okay, the resolution's not recommended by NISBA. The first 3 are really national issues, and they're all to support the non-recommendation. So support the proposed New York Health Act and any legislation at the state or federal level that provides single-payer health care. Support legislation that requires every child age 0 to 21 be covered for free under the Child Care Plus. And support legislation which requires the state of New York to hold school districts harmless for employee and retiree health care increases that exceed the consumer price index. So we support them as not recommending.
So just taking one as an example, because I'm not good at double negatives.
Right, I know, it's very,
It's a little confusing. So NISBA supports legislation that requires every child in New York State age 0 to 21 be covered for free under the Child Health Plus program. Are we saying we don't support that?
correct.
And, is it because we wanted to continue to be income eligible?
I think that's what it says.
Like, I'm wondering, why would you not want everybody covered? But maybe because there is a increased burden of cost,
Right.
but I don't know why that would affect a school board. I don't know, that seems like such a nice thing, but there's got to be a reason it's going to come back and cause a cost.
On number 22, that was the issue of the retiree healthcare piece. That one was the one where there's the cost.
Right.
Their concern was that there'd be it'd come back to bite schools in the back end. That would, especially given New York State's finances.
And without help from the national government,
Yeah, and
put all of that on the state is why they're not supporting it, I think.
22 was they were against the scope.
Right. 23,
21.
support legislation that creates a process for tenure review and renewal every 5 years. Westput says they support the concept of renewable tenure. But they are recommending that we leave on the books the support for renewable tenure to be part of the resolution. So they do not support the resolution to not recommend. So they are in support of this.
Renewable tenure.
Correct. They think it should be left on the books because once it goes away, it's sometimes hard to get it back, and they want people to continue to think about renewable
So
tenure.
what they're saying is West Bud agrees with the proposed resolution, not with NISBA's recommendation to oppose it.
Correct.
And I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with renewable tenure. So that would be a yay when they say nay. We would
Correct.
be voting yes on this, not no.
No, I would be voting no.
No, you would be voting yes.
NISBA is recommending,
This is very
NISBA is
not
recommending not to vote against it.
NISBA's recommending no, that we vote
again.
Against
not
the-
recommending its adoption.
Right.
And I will vote
For Westchester
the
Putnam.
proposed
for
resolution.
adoption.
So yes on 23.
Yes.
Right,
No on their no, which is a yes.
correct.
Did you just say that out loud?
I did say that.
Complicated.
No on their
It gets
no,
very
yes.
complicated. So 20, and wait, I mean, at the meeting, they go through this about 8 times.
Wait, there's more.
24, NISBA seeks legislative support for eliminating the initial public straw vote in the process of the prospective merger or consolidation of school districts. Yes, we agree not to support that. Westput says yes. 25 and 26 are almost exactly the same. They will probably be combined in one. The problem is with these are both from Westput schools in our Westput area. They really want the right for non-instructional services to not be forced to go through BOCES, because the BOCES services that they're looking at have not been adequate. They can get them cheaper and better through another vendor.
Meaning
talking
another
occupational
non-BOCES
therapy?
or a different BOCES?
It
Or
could be a
both?
different BOCES.
Could be a different
besides your
BOCES
local.
or a non-BOCES. But they don't want to have to use for
Nor the Westchester
non-instructional
So
services.
occupational therapy, speech and language.
No, but I think it's more like
Technology.
fixing their computers.
Oh,
I
okay,
mean, I think
okay.
I don't think it's necessarily
Support
those things.
services,
Those
related
are,
services.
I
okay.
would say those are instructional services.
Instructional, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Right,
these
so
are-
right now, from like a technology standpoint, you're sort of limited to who, if we think we can get a better remote desktop service from Nassau BOCES, that isn't necessarily an option for school districts because
That's
we
right.
have a local BOCES which provides a similar service.
Got it, okay.
So I think this was sort of creating a free market amongst
Mm-hmm.
BOCES. Instead of now, the current practice is if our BOCES doesn't have it, they have to sort of okay BOCES, what's it called?
Is it a waiver?
No, but it's called a cross-contract.
Right.
They have to
Okay.
cross-contract with another BOCES on our behalf.
Okay.
So we can't go directly to another BOCES. We
No.
have to go
Go
through
through
our BOCES and ask them to cross-contract on our behalf.
And you can't go to an individual.
We
if you-
can. We can go to any individual. I think this is specific to
This
BOCES.
is just among BOCES.
Well, one of their, one of
the
the
actual-
rationales was about the aid formulas that that if they can get it, at least in in the rationale here, they were talking about, or maybe the school district was talking about, what is good for BOCES, the idea that, we get 50% back, but you're going to get 50% back on what some might consider an overinflated price that they can get cheaper outside of a BOCES.
Right.
But you're saying that you don't have to go through a BOCES for these services.
There's absolutely no requirements for us to purchase anything through BOCES. We always have the option to go the private route.
Independent, yeah.
But
Cheaper is always better.
we are limited to our BOCES for their services unless they don't have a service
Then we-
and are willing to cross-contract on our behalf.
Right,
So this is creating a free market amongst
competition
BOCES.
among
Competition
BOCES.
is, they said competition would benefit students by ensuring non-instructional services cost less.
Right, the actual motion says New York State School Boards Association should encourage laws, regulations, and policies that promote competition between BOCES when they provide non-instructional services to districts.
Good. How is 25 and 26 are the exact same?
Basically
Well,
the same,
Pretty
yes.
much the same.
Now,
Yeah.
does the percentage doesn't change depending on the BOCES?
No.
Then I guess, yeah.
Okay. And the last one, NISBA supports legislation that would require mandated reporters to participate in periodic refresher courses related to the signs of child abuse. they just felt we should leave it to local control and the state should, so they did not recommend that for adoption, that resolution.
Okay.
Okay?
I now understand why I lost you for like 4 straight hours at last year's NISBA conference.
You lost her, like you didn't know where she was? She was
I wasn't
It's in the
invited to this
conference room.
session,
Oh,
but
they lock
apparently it
you
was
in a
long.
room
It's
and
in the
don't let
conference room with the
it,
paddle.
give you a
Oh,
paddle you
once.
can wave.
Joe and I went once, and we were supposed to meet for lunch, and I was like, it's 5 o'clock. I'm out.
One of the groups that's performing is from student groups that's performing at the thing is from James O'Neill High School. I don't know when they're performing, but it's nice that at least one of our local schools is
It's nice.
on the agenda.
We were excited about this year's conference because we submitted proposals
I know,
for
I know.
presentations, student-led presentations and performances, and
And
now
I
that
think we have
there's
to keep
no,
doing that. Eventually, they'll get tired of it.
yeah, well,
Say yes.
there's no physical conference, so I'm sure their opportunities for those things has dwindled.
Yes, I think so. All right.
The only other thing I wanted to say was, we got the thing from West Putt about the roundtable discussions.
Yes.
That they're offering November 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And I was wondering whether there were any that specifically I should attend. I mean, ensuring safe facilities, socially distanced board meetings, communicating with parents, distance learning and technology, transportation challenges, providing athletics and extracurriculars, student and faculty mental health, difficult discussions at the board table, that we don't need. Ensuring safe facilities, that's again, special needs students and special ed, assessing student learning, addressing the news in school, climate change, racial justice. I just wondered if, I probably won't do them all, but if there were ones that we felt that I should attend or somebody should attend, we can.
One that just jumped out at me was the accepting the news in schools, because that is, I think, the most changeable. Well, you've been an educator forever, so a lot of the other things, but that's
Yeah, it's offered twice. It's offered on Wednesday at noon and Thursday at 6
That's a
in
little
the
bit more
evening.
to the minute
Okay.
kind of thing. And there was another one that I thought was interesting.
You want me to read them again?
Sure.
Ensuring safe facilities, socially distanced board meetings, communicating with parents, distance learning and technology, difficult discussions at the board table, student and faculty mental health, providing athletics and extracurriculars, transportation challenges. I didn't even want to go there.
So the only thing I was thinking, providing extracurricular and
Athletics.
Is that like in a COVID world or in general?
I think it will end up being in a COVID world.
The background for all these are in the COVID world.
Right, because that would certainly, if we hear because that's
What others are
also
doing, yeah.
ongoing changes.
Okay.
If there's a non-COVID world available, I'd vote for that.
Please sign up. Okay.
No, because obviously I think we provide wonderful extracurricular activities and athletics, but COVID has complicated it, being someone that just had a Zoom GSA meeting this afternoon, which is just not the same as having kids in the room interacting, and it's still a safe place for them to meet, but if people are going to be talking about some good ideas or requirements or liabilities, let's hear it.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Because those are the two that just jumped out at me. I think we do everything else.
And then whatever it turns out, I did sign up for this equity and inclusivity. There are supposed to be 3 webinars. I did the first one. I haven't heard about the second 2, but I also contacted Jeanette and then Lauren Soprano about our anti-racism crew committee, and joined that committee too. So they're just getting started defining terms. Jeanette gave me a book. My eyes are like rolling back in my head. Thank you, Jeanette. Anyway,
I always forget what Jeanette you're talking about. I assume
Jeanette Nestretta. So we can report on at our next meeting anything at the convention that
Sure, that's great, Barbara. And Barbara, it is,
that we like.
Joe's attending also.
Huh?
Joe's attending also, right?
Joe, you're signed up too? Oh, great, okay.
it is very interesting and it is very tedious. So thank you both for,
Well, it's the sitting for the whole
Yeah.
day. It's gonna make me a little crazy.
so thank you both for
But at least
doing
we're
that for
not
us.
necessarily in a
I
conference
don't have
room
to
in a
catch a
hotel
train.
in Rochester or
That's
something.
it. I don't have to go up to Rochester on the train, which was a
Always a good
beautiful
thing.
ride last
Where
year.
it'll
I
be
will
snowing
say.
already.
Always a good thing.
That's true. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Dr. Luft, I think you're up.
I'm up. So, as was mentioned earlier, this is, of course, everyone's favorite week of the year, School Board Recognition Week.
I didn't know.
So we
You
get
notice?
paid.
So, on behalf of all the members of the Cabinet, we wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of our committed board members, the countless hours of work you all perform each week seems overwhelming to many, considering the fact you do it for free. Seems crazy to some. But you have all held strong throughout many crises we've experienced here over the past few years without losing sight of our children and the community we serve. So ask everyone to please take this opportunity to join us in thanking and recognizing the fantastic board members we have here in Putnam Valley. So we have some little goodies. We got a cupcake from the bakery, Homestyle Bakery, and one of the new face masks that the Putnam Valley Education Foundation is selling. So
Nice, thank you.
thank
very
you
much.
all.
Thank you very much.
So I wanted to provide an update on, obviously, we had our first COVID positive case at Putnam Valley High School. I think we learned a tremendous amount going through the process. We certainly had the advantage of learning from many of our peers in the region, and were able to avoid some of the mishaps or mistakes that they made. We were able to quickly collect all the information we needed to provide to the Department of Health for contact tracing. We were able to reopen our building on Monday with our normal remote-only schedule, with students returning on Tuesday. So the high school was only closed for that one Friday. The purpose for the closure was really just to provide time for the contact tracers to get in touch with individuals who may have been exposed. We followed our normal cleaning procedures, which are obviously aligned with CDC guidelines, and made sure that all spaces were clean and disinfected before anyone returned to the building. I guess an important point to note is that there's no known spread of the virus within our school. In fact, the data has shown that there have been no known infections in the region, which means that those individuals who are put out on quarantine have not been testing positive in Putnam Valley or in surrounding schools. So I think that's an affirmation that the protocols and procedures we have in place are working. Students are following them. And certainly school is one of the safest places students can be. In almost every case of a positive, school being notified of a positive case, that individual was infected outside of school. So this is a good reminder that our behaviors outside of school have a direct impact on our ability to be in school.
Dr. Luft,
Yep.
on that, the CDC, was it yesterday or maybe it was today, we changed some of the definitions as to what close contact was. Did that change any of the Department of Health's protocols for next steps if this happens again, or no?
No, the New York State Department of Health was already using 10 minutes of aggregate exposure over 48 hours. The CDC changed their guidelines to 15 minutes of aggregate exposure over 24 hours. Okay. So it's still a lesser threshold than what the New York State Department of Health contact tracers have been using. I think New York State may have the most conservative approach to identifying individuals to quarantine. I know recently in the news was Harrison had 200 students quarantined for a single positive case, and speaking with the superintendent. A big piece of that was students in the cafeteria. It almost didn't matter where they were in the cafeteria. They could be on the total opposite side. Just everyone in the cafeteria was put on quarantine, as well as it went into sports and other things. So they're certainly being as conservative as possible when identifying large numbers of individuals to quarantine. But the good news is none of those quarantine individuals have been testing positive
Right, that's great.
anywhere in the region. So one of the items that we sort of tabled last board meeting that I wanted to bring back up was the continued discussion about the high school fall drama. The request was made to survey students to see what the interest level would be. So I reached out to Dr. Massera, and he was able to administer that survey. I'll just quickly review some of the results. I know the results were sent to the board. 86 students responded to the survey pretty equally across all 4 grade levels. 24 had said yes, they would be interested. 37 students said maybe, and 25 said no. So those are the interest numbers. I know in the past that fall drama involved a very small number of individuals. And I guess the hope is that the format of this one and sort of the inclusiveness of it without having students audition for parts would increase the level of involvement of students.
I know my concern is that this is an item that we cut from the budget in May. Any limitation to be an increase. I don't think with our financial constraints right now that it'd be prudent to do that.
But this is many more students than are normally involved in the fall,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes, because the
Like
fall
by
is usually
factor
a
of
small play.
8.
It's usually a small play drama.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking along the lines of, barring Peter, hey, Paul, we have on the agenda today, we have a guitar club that is on the agenda today to approve, which has decidedly less students, and I would argue have many more avenues for people to learn how to play guitar without a club than a theater group would. So, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to pit one against the other, but if I had to choose, I would choose the reinstatement of a play over the approval of a guitar club, which is 5 to 10 students. So that's just kind of some of my thinking with it. You know, my main concern was I wouldn't want anything with the fall show if it was going to be 10 students, but if it's going to be, 50, 25, 30, whatever it's going to be, could be really large because we're spending money on athletics, and I understand we cut this, but I just think that there are very few avenues for these activities to exist outside of this arena. So that's, I would be.
Can I ask a question about where they fall in the budget? Like, I think, and do they have to fall a certain way? Like, I'm almost thinking of it as student activities. And earlier, or maybe in an email, I can't recall, I don't know if it was at the meeting or an email, you had indicated we're having a certain number of clubs we dropped for lack of interest or whatever else. I wish we had it set up that there was just like a bottom line figure that we don't go over, that we can have that flexibility, because I understand. We said no fall play, but we also said 50,000 to be spent on clubs.
But we didn't really say no to a fall play. We said we didn't think that it was possible to do one
In this environment.
in this environment. So we took it out of the budget mostly because we didn't think there was a way to do it.
And what they're talking about now is a virtual.
Did we keep a spring?
I think the
Yes,
spring is
in
in,
there.
because we were hoping that by then it would open up.
So I'm hearing Jeanette's concern. I just wish it was like student activities. Like, is there a bottom line number?
Like
Right,
a drama club.
Right.
And certainly the money is budgeted under student activities. It's not a line-by-line budgeting process for every single club and what the stipend is. I mean, you are correct, there are savings within the student activity funds. We do have clubs that were budgeted for that will not be running just because they're simply not conducive to running within the environment we have. So if you look at something like intramurals, Go Green, I know each building sort of is not running clubs that were otherwise budgeted for because of the restrictions that are in place. They just don't work well virtually.
So is it an overall at least equal or wash as,
So technically, they're not, I mean, I know you're all referring to them as student activities. They're actually called separate, have separate building treasurer.
Right.
Slightly different, but I understand what.
right,
So
right.
there's a line in the budget.
Sorry, can you go up to the mic? Because people at home aren't going to be able to hear you. Thanks.
Sorry.
We're used to being, you having a table with the mic, Jill.
If you guys want, I can see if Dan can give you mics out in the audience.
We'll be shouting out things. So technically, there are 3 lines in the budget, one for each of the buildings. And the clubs that we anticipate having from year to year, they can change in their value because different people or, could be running them, so they get paid at different levels. So there is a dollar figure that's put in the budget for each of the buildings. The amount of money I think that we said this particular club was going to end up costing based on the new budget that we were given is $9,000, which is less than what it had been in the past. So the amount that was cut from the budget was more than, what we would have to spend if we put it back into the budget. Now, there were other things in the budget since we passed it that aren't taking place. Certainly there's a lot of items throughout different parts of the budget, professional development and other things in athletics and places that we're saving money that we aren't able to, to run because of the COVID situation that we're in. So when you say, was it included? No, it wasn't included in those particular lines, but it can certainly be, transferred from another area of the budget and covered by other funds if that's what you feel strongly about putting it back in. We just, I don't like putting things back in that have been cut, obviously, because we cut them because we needed it to do other things, but like I said, there may be an opportunity because we know there's other things that aren't happening. I worry about the year end. I always worry about what expenses we don't know about. So, yeah, there are those things too. But the budgeted lines are not exact if that's what you're asking.
And then student activities, that really is the building, that's not extracurricular, that's class trips, and that's a whole different.
No, student activities are within each building. They're the clubs that are run. They have their own. They're separate entities from the school district. They're fundraised activities that are run by other, advisors, and it's just a different term. That's all.
Okay.
It doesn't have anything to do with the budget itself.
All right. It's the same clubs we refer to as clubs, just some of them are technically student activities and others are technically extracurricular activities.
Okay.
I mean, in general, I think moving forward, whenever prior to since we didn't have the big influx of all the clubs being ready to go at the same time, a month ago, that if somebody wants a club to go forward and is putting it in through the process to be approved, I think they should probably do due diligence and survey interest before we even think about saying yes, because we probably already said yes to a number of clubs and we don't know what that attendance has been. Attendance has always been a question for us anyway, and not knowing that we've gotten really good and clear numbers on that attendance last year or whatever. And we did have a lot of clubs that obviously didn't do anything in March, April, May, and June of last year. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is unless we look at it holistically and see what, if anything, we want to balance the books with, for lack of a better phrase.
And did we pass the budget post-COVID? Well, we passed the budget post-COVID.
I just want to add that we do look at the attendance mid-year. I mean, that is looked at halfway through the year to make sure that the participation levels are what they, what we think they should be. And if there isn't any participation or the participation has dropped off so much, we have eliminated clubs mid-year in buildings when we needed to. So that isn't something that we just, bring in and then don't do anything, don't oversee it. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Now, is this technically a board vote, or it would be to transfer money, or it's not because it's already available?
Yeah, no, it's certainly not a budget transfer or something that requires a vote. It's just sort of something that wasn't in the budget, and it's something that I think warranted a discussion amongst the board before we sort of get back to the building and say yay or nay, whether we want to sort of give them permission to move forward.
I feel that those students lost last year, and for some of them, this is their final year. I just don't think it's that big an amount. Like, it was, I don't know. I just think
I hear what
we
you're
should
saying.
support the arts as well as sports. And so I would say I'm in favor of allowing this. There's enough of an interest that I think that we should allow Dr. Massera to go forward.
I mean, I would argue also, not that they're on the same level, but in some way, we just sat through an entire IB presentation that, not that there's not benefits to spending the money on IB, but at the same time, there's a lot of money, a lot of resources being put behind IB, and really the presentation didn't talk to about 150 to 200 students in this building that will not be going an IB route, and I didn't want to rain on the parade, but at the same time, I think this is an avenue, just like sports is an avenue for some, that academics is not why they come to school, and we put a lot of emphasis on that. I think you're right. I think for these students who lost a lot of students that lost that opportunity and don't have the ability to participate in this activity in any other way or many other ways, I think it's important.
And if you take it that next step, if we actively go to the community and acknowledge this and make sure they all know about it, this will be a great uniting the community in this district. It'll give the community who's basically stuck at home a play, virtual or not. This will give them something to look to see their own students, not their students, but the whole community. So it'll be a great community activity.
I think our bottom line role as a board is fiduciary responsibility and responsibility to the taxpayer. And I think, I'm not going to put words in Ms. Shedder's mouth, but I think we have often talked about we can't have these mid-year decisions. Let's do this, let's do that. Having said that, we talked about the real world, the non-COVID world versus the COVID world. Yeah. Our kids did lose 6 months of things in a budget. They lost most of their musical. They lost other things. We're still within an overall budgeted amount that it doesn't even require a budget transfer. So given all of that, I can get behind it. I just think I love that it is our responsibility to question any new budgetly affected or any new thing affected by that affects the budget.
If he had come and said, I have this new idea I want to add, right. I'm sorry, you need a year to plan that.
Right.
But this is, we didn't think it was possible.
Right.
We didn't know how school was going to open.
We
didn't think a play was possible at all. Now I have this idea that maybe it would be possible in this other format, and we'd already said we wanted 2 plays a year. So I agree with you and Jeanette and everybody else who says, we don't want people coming mid-year and saying, oh, I just had this new idea. I want to start this now. No, right. It requires planning, but this, this I think is
right
outside of that.
And 2 plays a year may not be a luxury we can afford because we have no idea what our budgets are going to be coming forward. So we can now,
And we really don't know what's gonna happen in the spring, and that money is budgeted,
yep,
and we don't know, you know? Because if there's still have to be, 10 minutes aggregate, in 48 hours.
Just to add a little bit, for next year, if we feel, like, I would like to see in this, when we are talking budget, if we do have to talk about cuts, if we do have to talk about cutting extracurricular activities, that if this isn't the one that we wanted to cut, that we put a little bit more thought into the group of that's out there of clubs and decide which are the ones that we're going to cut, and try to stick with that, because I do feel the pressure of having to give, to say, where are we going to find this and where are we going to get it? And, it's not up to me to decide whether it's the best thing for the kids or not the best thing. It's just to figure out where the money's coming from, right? So I would just ask that more thought be put into how we decide what we're cutting in this. We can kind of stick with what we decide to do. I know things can change and facts can change and things like that.
well, and one driving force, I think, does have to be numbers of kids impacted versus costs. So, okay, we hear you loud and clear, Jill.
And some might say that maybe it's, the students and the advisors of those clubs need to make their case to the principal, and the principal needs to, is given a pot. This is how much. And if you want to decide what students are able to engage and what students are not able to engage based on numbers or whatever criteria you put in place, here's your pot, and then then we stick to that pot of that number, or that's one option to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how we treated. We told the principals for the last couple of years that they've had to hold that line steady. So if they wanted to introduce a new club, they had to remove an old one. We weren't increasing the club. Coming into this year, we made a percentage, I don't remember if it was 10% or 20% per building. We told them they had to reduce that number and then figure out which clubs were going to fit into it. Obviously, the fall drama was a big piece of the savings from the high school, but I think at the time, nobody really imagined that fall sports would be going underway, and that we'd be in school for 6 weeks, and that there would be a realistic possibility of being in school long enough to put something like this on. I feel a little bit of sort of a moral thing to support the students while we're here, because we have no idea what's going to happen for the rest of the year, and I would hate to punt on this one and say we'll put all our eggs in the spring musical and then end up not being here for that one.
Which is what we did with graduations. There were a lot of movements that want to push and push and push, and there were a lot of districts that did that. And then, I had friends in Connecticut who their graduations were after their seniors are already away at school. So, I mean, we stuck to our dates, so that there's something to be said for dealing with what we can do when we can do it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to be, not that I'm afraid to be the one, but I don't want to be the one to say yay to this and nay to guitar, right? But, if I have to make the numbers choice, I'm going to make the numbers choice and know that 50 people are engaged in a play type of situation and 5 to 10 are engaged in a guitar club, and they could do that. Since it's going to be remote anyway, I'm assuming that type of club would be remote. I don't even know. If that type of club is going to be remote, you can do all kinds of online free guitar lesson stuff, so as far as having those other sources. So I don't want to be the one to make that decision, but I'd be happy to vote yay or nay if that's what we need to do.
So I'm hearing that we don't think we need to do that. At this point, we are supporting, you brought up in your superintendent's report the drama club, the fall drama.
Correct.
So we are supporting that as of now for the very number of reasons we have said.
Sounds good.
So that's it for now.
All right, a couple more things. So just a quick update. I know everyone's aware of the sports guidelines. So this is really just a reminder. There is a limit of 2 guests per player. Face coverings, temperature and health screenings, as well as social distancing are all required. We're trying to explore ways to celebrate the seniors during the senior event. So I know the girls' soccer senior night is on Friday, boys' soccer is next Wednesday, and looking to find ways so family members of the seniors could participate in greater numbers. We have been able to set up live streaming thanks to our fantastic Dan Mahoney and the rest of the tech staff. We're able to get that up and running. So we will be live streaming both the girls' game on Friday and the boys' game on Wednesday. And there'll be, of course, photo opportunities for parents to take pictures with the players and all of those traditional things. Brian and I were also able to get confirmation for administrators or board members that are sort of attending the event in an official capacity that we do not count towards the players. But the request is that you reach out to Brian beforehand because you have to make sure you're still accounted for contact tracing, and then you would still be held to the same criteria for face coverings, temperature, health screenings, so on and so forth. So teacher observations have begun across all 3 buildings. I've had the opportunity to be in 5 different classrooms in the high school. Luckily, none of them have been quarantined since I was in them, which is a good sign. But it's been amazing just to see how the teachers see firsthand how the teachers have embraced this idea of hybrid learning. And in some classes, when they're asking questions, I wasn't sure whether the answer, if they were asking the question to a student who was physically there or a student who was not there, until the student responded either over speakers or in the classroom. So just a sort of a huge round of applause to all of the teachers and how well they have transitioned and been flexible and tried new and creative things until they found something that worked. Within our school, I recognize the burden was put on them to make this work. And I think overall, our teachers have really risen to the occasion to find something that works for both their in-person and their remote learners. We are currently in negotiations to update our APPR plan. Some of it obviously has provisions related to this school year. Recently had an administrative meeting. We focused on professional development, curriculum and instruction, assessments, social emotional support of students and staff. We also talked a little bit about the global pandemic, but notice I didn't say that first. So we're finally getting to the point where that's not the one topic of every meeting. We're finally starting to get back to the business of education. Area superintendent meetings, there's been a lot of talk about testing, what's coming down the pipe for testing, availability of testing for schools, and all of that good stuff. Everyone's awaiting guidance from the state regarding winter sports, more information regarding these cluster zones and what that means for school districts, as well as updated information on contact tracing. Today was our first after-school professional development. That was something that was introduced into the teacher's contract, the last settlement. So we had our first session today, and it focused on supporting remote and hybrid learners. A quick construction update. Individuals will notice the canopy under construction in front of the middle school. That was sort of one of the most visual pieces that was lacking. Is still the steel columns sticking up out of the ground, but now the actual canopy itself is being installed. The cinder block walls are going up in the Health and Wellness Center. Once those are complete, there'll be insulating panels, and then the brick face will start to go on. And you'll notice some landscaping and plantings beginning, as well as grass being planted on the slopes by the Health and Wellness Center. So the last item I had was also a topic of conversation for the board, was regarding the proposal or recommendation to purchase 2 streaming cameras for our sporting events. As I had mentioned before, the limitations on spectators for the sports has really eliminated any possibility of our own students attending sporting events, extended family, friends, in many cases siblings. So this is a service that many schools in our region already have, but I think sort of brings on a greater importance nowadays with the restrictions that are in place for spectators. The recommendation at this point would be just for 2 cameras, and we would certainly explore the feasibility of doing additional in the future, but the 2 cameras would be installed on the turf and in the high school gym. Those 2 spaces are obviously the most frequently used. They service both girls and boys sports. And we would certainly get the most bang for our buck to invest on that. The way the system works is the cameras are mounted and they're remotely controlled during sporting events. So there's someone in sort of a booth outside of the school district that's following the game, panning side to side, zooming in, and sort of make the watching experience a little more real life for those individuals that are at home. This would fall under the same idea of this is obviously not something that was budgeted for. It was obviously something we could never have planned for, but it's something that may become a real need as we go into the possibility of a winter and a spring season without spectators. From a cost point, we would look to sort of incur some of the savings that we've already had with the elimination of modified sports and not running any JV teams. We don't really know what's going to happen in this winter. There's a possibility there could be no winter sports, and that would be a tremendous savings as well. But we would still have the cameras in place for future seasons. Questions, thoughts?
Just a quick question about our accessibility. So it's a service. We're not setting up the cameras and telling Dan to run them. It's a service by an outside organization, agency, vendor.
Correct. So it's a service, and it's a service we would actually purchase through BOCES. I meant to mention that before. By purchasing it through BOCES, we get a substantial amount of that money back in aid the following year. So they're certainly advantageous for us to purchase it through BOCES. Dan and his team and Mike, they do a tremendous job. If you remember last winter, they streamed the girls' regional game. It was the first spectator-free game we've had, and they did a tremendous job. But just seeing the amount of work that goes into setting up, breaking down, streaming that entire event is very time-consuming, labor-intensive, and we're lucky that we have highly skilled and willing individuals to do those things. But I'm not sure Dan's as willing to do that 5 days a week, all winter, every day. It would be pretty cumbersome for that to be expectation. So this would be something that would sort of be our standard, and it doesn't preclude us from, if we have a regional championship game and we want to go above and beyond and add additional cameras, we would certainly have the ability to do so, or to plug someone in and do play-by-play commentary. This system has the ability to do so.
Would our students be able to request footage? I know many parents, for students that are looking at going to colleges, make their own little videos, and I mean, that's part of it. Not all our students have that support at home, you know, and taking away teachers who often do that for them, and staff that often do that for, would they have access to the footage?
So my very non-legal answer is they can record anything they see on a TV or on a computer. But as for like the intellectual property of it, how that would work, I would have to check. I know there's a contract that would come with it, has all these legal stipulations that we would send by our attorneys. But I don't know the legal answer to that question right now.
Yeah, I went, before the meeting, I went to like five or six different games with 5 different districts. I watched Somers, and I watched Horace Greeley, and I watched Walter Panis. So it's really just linking into this one page and all the schools that are available up there, and I could, the sports schedules are there, you just click on those sports schedules to watch the game. There's obviously no energy there because there's no crowd to make noise. But is that an annual fee?
It is. It's an annual fee. I believe it's a 4-year commitment. I think that's the commitment they need to recoup their costs. But that's what, yeah.
So
We're paying for that service for 4 years. But the service is just, we send them our schedule, and then we're hands off. They really handle everything else.
Okay.
Is it the payment by how many sports games are on the field, or just a flat fee?
Just device. So it's the set fee per device, unlimited games at that device.
Can we tell students they can't have watching parties that could become super spreaders, and they just stay in their houses with their devices and watch the lovely game?
We could certainly discourage that, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. So that would, that would be then an agreement that you put forth in a resolution moving forward.
If we want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a BOCES resolution, so it doesn't
Okay.
require a board vote.
Okay.
It would just be something that we would purchase through BOCES.
Get some of the state aid.
Sign the code or get the state aid back for it. Right now, the quote we got is they're 30 to 45 days out for installation. So if it's something that we would hope to use for winter sports, assuming that winter sports actually happen, we would have to sign that COSER certainly sooner than later to get it in place.
So, but if I remember what the proposal was, it was going to be like $12,000 before aid?
Correct. 13,600 for the 2 cameras before aid. And we get, I confirmed with Jill, about 70% of that money back from BOCES.
70?
Jill said something.
That was an emphatic yes.
All right, this is a COVID world decision, and I
makes it
think
harder
we
to
have
say
to make a
no,
COVID
right?
world decision.
That makes it harder to say no, because, my interest is not necessarily, I mean, it's a horrible thing to say. My interest is not the parents seeing their kids play sports. It is the kids playing sport, right? I understand it's part of the experience. I get that. So, I mean, on some level, that's part of it, but at the same time, our money should be going towards student opportunity and not necessarily for observer opportunity. And I know it's kind of a funky line to draw. I don't know that, we're hemming and hawing over an activity of students, 50 some odd students, but we seem to be okay with, let's put in technology so parents or the occasional outside group or some can see athletics.
But I don't think we should lose sight of, I think our greatest viewership will be students.
Right.
I think the service is primarily for our students. I mean, if you think about the number of students that attend a basketball game here in Putnam Valley, I can't see any scenario in which students would be allowed to attend basketball games if basketball games were even allowed. So assuming they are allowed, I would wager that a vast majority of those individuals who are watching that event are in fact students watching their peers, more so than parents watching their children. So I think in many ways this is a service for students to be able to participate in sort of what is a ritual in many schools, certainly this one, which is cheering on their classmates through these sporting events. And obviously they don't have the opportunity to do it in the traditional fashion, but I don't think that would affect the number of students that would like to virtually watch what's going on.
And maybe they can Zoom with their peers while they're watching, so we're not having super spreader events.
We might have to ban Zoom calls from the bench of sporting events, but.
All right, well, I'm in support of it. I know I keep joking about the super spreader thing, but
It's true.
we do have to look at the fact that if it causes us trouble,
And it'll be indoor, right?
it's not worth it.
That's the issue. It'll be in
one's
the middle
indoor.
of winter and people will not be outside.
One's indoor, one's outside. But
Okay.
I'm okay with it. We don't have a vote anyway, so do we want
So it sounds like there's a general,
consensus?
okay. That's all I have.
Can I just gonna say, you're talking about one in the turf and one in the gym, but not the new.
We certainly can. I mean, they do have a camera meant for auditorium spaces. It's actually
I
significantly.
mean, is this something you could add later, one more camera or whatever?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Okay,
we have
all right,
things
all
for it. The problem with doing it here is we sort of already do it. We have a setup in here. We almost always
Oh, I
film.
didn't mean
No,
in
he
here,
means
I
in
meant in the
wellness
new
center.
health and wellness center.
Oh, I mean, that's primarily a practice space,
Oh,
which
okay.
is why I was hesitant to put one in there.
Okay.
If that space ends up being used for competitions, likely cheerleading and wrestling, if it was used for competitions, we certainly could explore that.
Okay.
The other thing that we would look into in the future is they now have a mobile unit. So a mobile unit is something, it's sort of unproven. I don't know if any districts have one that they're physically using. I would like to see it work before we invested in it. But a mobile unit would allow you to sort of wheel it into a space like that, wheel it over to a baseball game or a softball field, I would love to cover every field, but when you think about the fact that by purchasing a camera for the baseball field, they maybe have 10 games at home the entire year, and then that camera sits dormant after those 10 games, right? So there's not a lot of sort of return on our investment for a field that's only used for special.
$600 a game.
Right. Where
It's
if we have
flexible.
a mobile unit that we can roll over for baseball and then roll over for softball and then roll up to the Health and Wellness Center, that's something that we could certainly look at in the future. But for now, the two fields, the two spaces that are predominantly used seem like the most prudent places to start and see how happy we are with the service.
Okey-doke. I'd like to open it up now to public comment on any agenda item for anybody in the audience. And do we have anything online, Mrs. Molina? Okay. Then I'd like to move on to new business. There's not a great deal of it, so I'll ask you to start with number one, Mr. Farrar.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation of school monitor Nicolette Lessa from the district effective October 9th, 2020, as per document number 8921 attached to the agenda and official minutes this meeting.
Second?
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number two.
See?
Go ahead,
Want me
Janet.
to take it?
Go ahead.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation of middle school Spanish teacher Maria Jamieta from the district effective October 18th, 2020, as per document number 93-21, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
That was a good one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number three, I've lost track. Is that you, Ms. Farmer?
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Ann Kelly to a 4-year probationary term as a Spanish teacher commencing November 2nd, 2020, and terminating on November 1st, 2024, in the tenure area of LOTE at the middle school on Step 2 of the PVFT salary schedule. Ms. Kelly owns Spanish 712 initial certification. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said employee must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective during the 4-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Number one, Mr. Cohen.
Resolved to approve consent agenda items 2 through 9 as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
We're approving CSE, CPSE placements. We're approving additions to the substitute tutor list. We're approving an agreement with Henry G. Lopez to provide residency investigation of employees when it's necessary. We're accepting a generous anonymous donation for decorations at the middle school of $225. We're approving in-service credit changes for 2020. We're approving an unpaid leave for an employee. We're approving the guitar club, which we were discussing before, which dates back. The guitar club was actually one of the first clubs we ever had at the high school when it opened. And we're approving a budget transfer of $150,000 to cover possible unemployment claims. And we're transferring this money from teaching special schools. And we're approving additional hours for a staff member to work with a student who needs homebound care. And we're approving an elementary school reading teacher.
And I think I might have just misheard, but the agreement with Mr. Lopez was for residency investigation services for students and employment investigation
Right.
matters. So
Yes,
I wasn't
I'm
sure if
sorry,
I heard that. Just
I read it wrong.
might have been pulled in together, so.
Yes.
That way, make
We-
sure everybody knows who that person is.
We do not investigate where our employees live. Live wherever you want, just come to work on time. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Even if you live in Long Island.
And then, Dr. Leff, would you like to talk about topics for upcoming meetings?
Sure. So I know for the November meeting, we have Ms. Maschetta coming to discuss two topics. One is professional development, so I'll talk a little bit about the success of the after-school professional development program, which is something, like I said, today was the first day, as well as the work of the Anti-Racism Committee, Ms. Mistretta and Ms. Lauren Soprano, who is leading that committee as part of her district internship for admin degree, will be here to present on that. No, we also expect, by the way, everything I'm telling you is for the December meeting, not the November one. And our science research students themselves will not be here, but Mr. Zupan will have a presentation that'll talk about their topics and their need for mentors. So all of that is actually the December 10th meeting. For our November meeting, we have Dr. Doherty scheduled to provide an update on our social emotional learning and counseling services. So is there anything else we want to add to the spotlight agenda for either the November or the December meeting?
Can I just ask, and boy, are they not going to be happy with me. Dr. Doherty, your presentation, can it include some live action, see the people in action, like let people talk about their own work? I know we've always liked when the teachers come and do presentations. We love hearing from you, Dr. Doherty, but if we can put faces to names, some of us don't have that, so even a quick introduction, or there have been a number of new hires, so. Okay.
Can we also, in danger of sparking controversy, can we get some sort of update on the history curriculum and how it's being taught?
So not scope and sequence, you're talking more of actual
Content.
content. Okay.
So that's not to rush over the next
So
future.
I'm just at some point, I think, kind of since, it's built into Anti-Racism Committee, I think, we look at how major historical events are being taught contextually.
Right, yeah, say through which lens?
Yep.
Or which context? Okay.
And topic, not even a topic for me, but just we are going to be, in the interest of letting our wonderful custodial staff go to bed before 1 a.m. on a Thursday night, we're going to be in here for a while.
I believe that is the plan, yes.
So maybe we have to be flexible about how we second. Let's talk about that for next week, rather than remember who do I usually sit next to.
Just matters
We
if you're
got
visual
it.
or you're audible.
We're conditioned. We
I
got
think
it.
I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't care. So whatever you all want to do.
You don't have to do it, so don't worry.
I don't have to do it, so I'm not going to worry about
Not
it.
your problem.
Right. Open it up to public comment on any topic whatsoever. Anything from any of the board members? All right, at which time I would like to make, hold on, let me go to the right page. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
happy Halloween.
Oh, happy Halloween, happy fall. Stay safe, everybody.